Good evening. It's Tuesday, February 11th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amitha Sharma in for Maya Trabulsi. San Diego has its first confirmed case of the coronavirus, but how that diagnosis came about is raising eyebrows tonight. A mistake in testing is also leading some to wonder, did others come in contact? KPBS reporter Matt Hoffman begins our coverage.
Makes me a little nervous, sure, but I don't know how it'll affect me or at least I hope it doesn't.
The story of how San Diego's first coronavirus case was discovered involves a mishap. Last week, more than 230 people arrived at MCAS Miramar from Wuhan, China, to be quarantined for 14 days. Anyone showing signs of the virus, that officials are now calling COVID-19, was taken to local hospitals for further testing. That includes a woman who went to UC San Diego Medical Center in Hillcrest. The hospital says her test result came back negative, so she was taken back to Miramar. But then the CDC discovered a mistake. The wrong test had been looked at.
It turns out there was probably a mix-up, and the original test wasn't negative.
The error was found after the woman spent the night on base. She's now back at the hospital for isolation.
That sounds like somebody dropped the ball there, so that's not good.
That's really bothersome, yeah, and I have a lot of confidence in the CDC, and so when something like that happens, it's a little frightening.
You're concerned that, somehow or other that the person got back out into the public, but the bottom line is at least they found their mistake, and hopefully they're doing something about it.
The big question now, did this person infect others quarantined at Miramar?
The preliminary information I had was that there was very limited contact.
A CDC spokesperson says they are investigating, but so far believe the person did not pass the virus to anyone else. Doctors have said regardless if someone tests positive for the virus, there is no concern for the public.
There's no risk to anyone coming to the hospital, the emergency rooms, anyone that gets hospitalized.
UC San Diego Medical Center says the patient who tested positive is doing well. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
Here are the latest numbers on the coronavirus. We're waiting on today's update, but at last report, more than 1,000 have died with all but one of those cases in China. There are now more than 42,000 confirmed cases around the world. That includes 13 cases in the U.S. Some good news today for those caught up in this health scare. The first group of people to be quarantined in Southern California are on their way home.
These individuals have completed their quarantine. They pose no health risk to themselves, to their families, to their places of work, to schools or their communities. No health risk of novel coronavirus from these individuals whatsoever.
After spending 2 weeks at March Air Reserve Base in Riverside, the group celebrated by tossing their protective masks into the air like a graduation ceremony. They were the first group of Americans to be flown out of China as a precaution. None of the 194 people tested positive for the virus. Coronavirus is in the headlines, but it's the flu that has killed dozens of San Diegans in recent weeks. Coming up, we look at how our medical facilities are protecting their staff and preventing exposure. How does San Diego rank among California's healthcare providers? We look at challenges in making sure all workers are vaccinated. That's in about 12 minutes. The nation's first primary has ended, and now we wait for the results from New Hampshire. The final polls closed moments ago. Some early numbers are in, and they show Bernie Sanders in the lead, followed by Amy Klobuchar, Pete Buttigieg, and Elizabeth Warren a distant fourth, with 14% of precincts reporting. Just 24 delegates are up for grabs tonight, but the candidates are trying to build momentum in these early states. Leila Santiago gives us an update on the campaigns.
I think we got a path to victory for the Democratic nomination.
Tension growing between Senator Bernie Sanders and Pete Buttigieg making their last appeals to primary voters. Buttigieg looking for support from those who may feel alienated by Sanders' progressive agenda.
I'm concerned that the idea that you've got to either be for a revolution or you must be for the status quo paints a picture where most of us can't see ourselves, where most of us don't know where we fit in.
Sanders once again attacking Buttigieg and Joe Biden for their rich backers.
My friend Mr. Buttigieg and my friend Joe Biden, they have dozens and dozens of billionaires contributing to their campaign. We don't have any billionaires.
Is this Mickey Mouse on your hat now?
After a poor showing in Iowa, Biden looking ahead to contests in more diverse states.
I'm anxious to get to South Carolina and Nevada. I view this as, a package of four, just out of the gate. Right. And I don't know how you can judge who's going to likely be able to win the nomination until you have the African-American vote and the Latino vote. And that doesn't come till a little later.
Biden isn't alone in needing a strong finish in New Hampshire.
So as you've probably heard, we're on a bit of a surge.
Amy Klobuchar making a plea to voters still on the fence.
And I've always told people that if you are tired of the extremes in our politics and the noise and the nonsense, you have a home with me.
Elizabeth Warren stressing Democrats should reflect on how they failed in 2016.
We can't have Democrats firing at Democrats or Democrats mad at other Democrats. We have got to pull together as a party because we've got to beat Donald Trump.
President Trump was also here for a rally last night.
So I hear a lot of Republicans tomorrow will vote for the weakest candidate possible of the Democrats. My only problem is I'm trying to figure out who is their weakest candidate. I think they're all weak.
That was Leila Santiago reporting. Here's how the calendar stacks up in the coming weeks. Next is Nevada, which holds its caucuses on Saturday, February 22nd. A week later, South Carolina holds its primary. Then 3 weeks from Tuesday, it's Super Tuesday. 16 states and territories will cast their vote, including California. In the race for Congress, one local Democrat is sending out mailers that say she's endorsed by California Democrats. But the local party organization says the claim is misleading. The mailers were sent by Sarah Jacobs, who is running for the open seat in the 53rd District. Today, San Diego County Democratic Party leaders criticized her and told the media the party is actually endorsing Jacobs' opponent, San Diego City Council President Georgette Gomez.
Democratic voters want to know who the Democratic Party supports. And so that's why it's deeply disappointing that we found out that Sarah Jacobs is trying to fool voters into thinking that she is endorsed by the California Democratic Party.
In response, the Jacobs campaign said the candidate is endorsed by several prominent California Democrats, including the lieutenant governor and several members of Congress. In the weeks ahead, get organized for the March primary with the KPBS Voter Guide. You can walk through your ballot with every race and measure customizable to your address. We also have links to some of the in-depth election coverage KPBS has brought you in recent weeks. The KPBS Voter Guide will allow you to save your choices so you have a complete list when it's time to fill out your ballot. You can find it right now at kpbs.org. SeaWorld will pay $65 million to settle a class action lawsuit tied to the documentary Blackfish. Investors claimed SeaWorld lied when the company said the 2013 film had no effect on attendance. Stock prices dropped due to the decline in business in following years. The movie was highly critical of the way killer whales are kept in captivity. And recently, SeaWorld has made changes to how it produces its animal shows. The settlement allows SeaWorld to avoid an admission of fault. It still needs final approval from a federal court. The top admiral for NAVWAR says the Navy's high-tech hub is committed to staying in San Diego. KPBS military reporter Steve Walsh says the Navy has a series of public hearings coming up this week.
The Navy's home for information warfighting in Cyper is in a World War II-era bomber factory that has been cited by the Navy for unhealthy conditions. A new campus is a top priority, says NAVWAR Commander Rear Admiral Kristen Becker.
We have the struggles that you would have with a facility that was built in the 40s.
The Navy wants a partner to replace the complex along Interstate 5 in Midtown, with the campus housing roughly 6,000 people. In exchange, the rest of the 70-acre site can be developed into a transit hub and housing using a private developer. The Navy chose Sandag from nearly 200 interested bidders.
In their response, Sandag brought forward this idea to work together, and that was the path we chose.
Under an agreement signed by the Secretary of the Navy, Sandag will find the private bidder to fund the project. Sandag estimates it will cost between $3.8 and $4.7 billion. Though Becker stresses that if all of the pieces don't fall into place, the Navy is still committed to build in San Diego.
We're going to find a way to conduct this business. We're going to work with a partner. And right now, Sandag is our partner. and we'll continue to pursue that. But there's just too much value to having this command in San Diego because it's a fleet concentration area. We're close to the Navy and the Marine Corps.
The Navy will relocate NAVWAR's warehouse space, so they only need office and laboratory space at the old SeaWorld location, leaving ample room for the public-private partnership.
If you look at the campuses of high-tech companies here in San Diego, you'll know what I'm talking about. That's what we need, because that's the same workforce that we're competing for.
The project is slowly moving through the approval process. An environmental review is expected in time for a series of public meetings in the spring. In the meantime, the Navy is holding the first public meetings Thursday and next Wednesday at the Liberty Station Conference Center. Steve Walsh, KPBS News.
One of the finer details in President Trump's new budget plan includes billions for a trip to the moon. The president wants Congress to approve $25 billion for NASA's next annual budget. Half of that would be designated for a manned lunar mission. President Trump says he wants to send astronauts to the moon by 2024. It's unlikely Congress would approve the president's budget as is, but NASA has often received funding at or beyond presidential requests. A moon mission is seen as a potential stepping stone to sending astronauts to Mars. Much of the work to prepare is happening in California. David Louie takes us to the Bay Area's Ames Research Center, where new rockets are being developed.
The engineers at NASA Ames Research Center in Silicon Valley are deeply immersed in testing the materials for the Space Launch System, or SLS. This is a model of the SLS that gets subjected to winds that can reach close to 2,000 miles per hour in this 9 by 7 foot supersonic wind tunnel. The model is covered with pressure-sensitive paint. The test produces color-coded visualizations to show where the model is enduring low or high pressure. Fluctuations can lead to instability or damage to the payload. The data is transferred to a supercomputer for analysis at the Marshall Flight Center in Alabama.
The benefits of putting this data on the supercomputers, that they can log on and see the results once we've produced them and ask for changes, and we can have a turnaround of, next day it's ready for them to look at new changes.
The model is embedded with 300 tiny microphones costing $2,000 each. With the clock ticking to land on Mars, Congress is being asked to boost NASA's next budget by $3 billion to $25 billion.
NASA Ames, of course, will get a substantial portion of the $25 billion being budgeted for the next year. But how much is it going to cost for us to get to the moon and then to Mars?
The director of NASA Ames, Eugene Tu, projects the Artemis project could cost $35 billion.
Now that's to get us back to the moon and also eventually sustainably to the moon. So it shouldn't require that much of an increase, but it's going to be a substantial investment, especially to meet the timelines that the administration has asked us to meet.
I'm Amna Nawaz. Tonight on the NewsHour, we are on the ground in New Hampshire, where voters will help shape the Democratic race for president. That's coming up at 7, right after Evening Edition on KPBS.
A southeast San Diego neighborhood garden, once shut down and up for sale, has reopened. KPBS Midday Edition co-host Jade Hindman visited the garden and brings us his story.
Against the backdrop of city buses, revving engines, and concrete sidewalks is an urban oasis in San Diego's Mount Hope neighborhood.
All right, we've got tomatoes.
Tomatoes. Fruits, vegetables, and herbs grow near the intersection of Market and Denby Street in the Mount Hope Community Garden. The area is described as a food desert, a place where there are too few nearby grocery stores and fresh produce is hard to find. Until recently, the garden's future was up in the air. But after some fundraising, Project New Village, who oversees the garden, bought the land from the city. Now there's a bigger community vision, something Diane Moss, who oversees the garden, calls a good food district hub.
What we plan to do is to put a grocery store here where a significant amount of what's sold in the store comes from the neighborhood.
The plan also includes classes on nutrition and best practices for preparing healthy food. Moss says the best part, though, is the exchanging of healthier recipes that happens when people meet here in the garden.
I find a lot of value here in cultural sharing. I grew up where collard greens, you put them in a pot with water and you boil them forever. But I talk to others here. Now I mostly stir fry my greens, or I steam the greens and make them into where you can make a wrap. Growing up, that's not what we did with collard greens.
You out here sauteing greens?
I'm saying.
Okay.
Some guy told me at the farmer's market the other day, he puts it on the grill.
Now that's something even I hadn't tried. The garden is open to the public every Tuesday and Thursday. Project New Village expects construction of the Good Food District Hub to be completed in the next 3 years. In the Mount Hope community, Jade Hindman, KPBS News.
At the top of the show, we brought you the latest on the coronavirus. The global outbreak is growing rapidly, and San Diego researchers are rushing to develop a vaccine. But county health officials say it's actually the flu you should worry about. KPBS health reporter Taryn Mento tells us why not all Californians are getting their shots, including the medical employees taking care of vulnerable patients.
Was that hard on your hand this time?
It was. Ed Hollingsworth used to walk the halls in school. Now he and wife Marian walk the hall at UC San Diego's Moores Cancer Center. He has a rare form of the disease that made him too fatigued to teach, even as a substitute.
I love the kids. I had more fun with the kids. I loved going to one school and the guy goes, "Oh, a sub," and this girl goes, "No, he's a good sub, as long as you do your work."
He made the difficult choice not to return to subbing because cancer treatment weakens his immune system and classrooms can be full of germs.
I don't dare expose myself to all that anymore.
But patients like him could be exposed to the flu at the facilities that care for them. The state wants 90% of a hospital staff to be vaccinated against the illness by the end of this year. But new data show nearly 200 California hospitals are not on track for that, including 5 in San Diego.
Their obligation is to protect us.
But the region's facilities are faring better than dozens in California. And San Diego is home to the hospital with the best vaccination rate in the state.
My name is Megan Medina. I'm an infection control coordinator at Rady Children's Hospital.
San Diego's Rady has 99% of staff vaccinated. Medina says that's possible because of a strict exemption policy. The county requires unvaccinated hospital employees to wear a mask while working, but they don't have to give any reason for declining. Rady only allows medical excuses, and the hospital verifies it.
The employee has to meet with our occupational health department and go through, a medical workup discussion to make sure that they truly meet our criteria.
The San Diego facilities that didn't reach goal all allowed personal belief exemptions. Alvarado Hospital Medical Center has the lowest vaccination rate in the county at 78%. For the record, the worst in the state, an LA hospital, is 29%. Alvarado declined an interview, but Dr. Craig Wajo at Scripps Health says the problem is some staff get the shot elsewhere, but don't provide proof.
If they don't send it to us, unfortunately, then we consider them unvaccinated.
He pointed to physicians. A law designed to block corporate practice of medicine means doctors are licensed independent practitioners. Scripps Mercy Chula Vista is one of those not on track to meet the state's goal, but only by 1 percentage point. If you removed licensed independent practitioners from the equation, the rate among direct employees is 1 point over goal.
I just don't think the numbers reflect accurately.
A Sharp facility in Coronado was also just shy of being on track, but a spokesman says it did a better job getting documentation from doctors this flu season, and the rate went up. Paradise Valley and Kindred hospitals were each at 84%, but again, they declined an interview. For Hollingsworth, the retired teacher undergoing cancer treatment, the risk of getting flu at his hospital is lower than others. He receives treatment at UC San Diego Medical Center in La Jolla, which is tied for the second highest rate in the state. But his wife, Marian, worries for patients where more employees use their right to refuse the vaccine.
I respect that, but I also expect them to be concerned and respect our rights to not be exposed to something that could, prove fatal.
All of the San Diego hospitals under goal allow personal belief exemptions, but so do many of the state's highest performers. Still, County Public Health Officer Dr. Wilma Wooten says she wasn't aware local hospitals were permitting it. We reached her on video chat.
That's something we need to explore and determine why that is.
But she says the county only requires employees to get a vaccine or wear a mask. So hospitals are free to enforce that how they choose. And there aren't any penalties if a facility doesn't meet the state's goal.
A policy needs to be in place, but we are not telling people how to implement that policy.
At the Hollingsworth home, the policy is get your flu shot. He and wife Marian asked their 26-year-old son to get it before coming home for Christmas. And when his son's bandmates stayed at the house for a recent show at the Casbah, he asked them to get it too. Killingsworth says he knew going to the nightclub was risky, but he couldn't miss his son's show. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
We're expecting dry weather for the rest of the week, but it's going to be another cold night. Some places will dip into the 30s. Marvin Gomez has our forecast.
Taking a look at our satellite and radar across the Southwest, notice how across most of Southern California, it's been quiet, it's been sunny out there. Those winds definitely calming down by the time we've gotten into the afternoon hours compared to what we had earlier today. And notice across New Mexico and also into Arizona, that's where most of the wet weather is taking place. And north of Albuquerque, a couple spots could be receiving more than 12 inches of snow. Here's your futurecast as we take you into the next couple of hours, and your Tuesday dry, but you could see that onshore flow bringing those clouds back by the time we head into your Wednesday night, and we're going to be waking up to some fog on Thursday morning. In the meantime, for tonight, we are looking at lows near 46 degrees across San Diego, Chula Vista at 43, into Borrego Springs 39 degrees with a mainly clear night. There could be a couple of clouds near Mount Laguna, 29 degrees for your low tonight. That dry air will continue in place for your Wednesday. Lots of sunshine and not a whole lot to talk about. As a matter of fact, it's going to be a very nice day for the entire Southwest. Our temperatures for tomorrow will be coming up to 65 across Oceanside, Ramona 65 as well, Mount Laguna 50, Campo 61, Borrego Springs, we are in the low 70s. As we look at your extended AccuWeather forecast across the coast, temperatures in the mid-60s for the next couple of days, and with partly sunny skies for your Thursday afternoon, and low clouds breaking for your Friday midday. Again, keep in mind we're going to have some foggy conditions for Thursday morning and Friday morning as well. Inland, we're looking at some clouds as well for your afternoon. Temperatures come up to 70 degrees on Thursday, 69 on Friday, 72 on Saturday. Across the mountain, lots of sunshine, partly sunny for your Friday afternoon. Temperatures close to 50 degrees, but for the most part, we are talking mid-40s. And of course, those freezing temperatures in the upper 20s for the nighttime hours. Across the deserts, we're close to 70 degrees during the day, and at night, those lows are in the mid to low 40s. That's all on my end. Thanks for staying with us here on KPBS News.
New legislation is being put forward to end the retail sale of dogs, cats, and rabbits in California. State Assemblyman Todd Gloria, along with local animal groups, say it's time to stop these so-called puppy mills and cat factories from profiting and keeping animals in inhumane conditions.
Some retailers continue to find creative workarounds to the current law just to make a profit. And that's why today I'm announcing the introduction of Assembly Bill 2152, and I'm naming it Bella's Act, to end the retail sale of dogs and cats and rabbits in the state of California.
The bills come on the heels of the San Diego Humane Society issuing 102 citations in 1 month alone to local pet stores in violation of existing state laws governing puppy mills. This has prompted local jurisdictions like National City to take similar action. It's a done deal. A federal judge has approved a massive $26 billion merger between Sprint and T-Mobile. The deal, years in the making, now unites the nation's third and fourth largest wireless carriers. In the ruling, the judge said he did not think the companies would pursue anti-competitive behavior, rejecting a lawsuit by dozens of states. The new company will keep the T-Mobile name and will reportedly employ 11,000 more full-time people. It was one of the largest hacks in U.S. history, and now the Department of Justice believes 4 members of the Chinese military were behind the 2017 hack of Equifax that affected millions of Americans. More now from reporter Daryl Forges.
The scale of the theft was staggering.
Staggering and one of the largest on record, according to Attorney General William Barr. A federal grand jury charged 4 people in the data breach of Equifax, a credit reporting agency.
The hackers obtained the names, birth dates, and social security numbers of nearly 150 million Americans.
The Department of Justice says the hackers are members of the Chinese People's Liberation Army. Attorney General Barr says it's unusual for the U.S. to charge members of another country's military or intelligence service. Equifax released a statement on the issue saying, in part, the attack on Equifax was an attack on U.S. consumers as well as the United States. Cybercrime is one of the greatest threats facing our nation today, and it is an ongoing battle that every company will continue to face as attackers grow more sophisticated. Equifax disclosed the hack in September of 2017, but it had discovered the breach 3 months earlier. The data breach and how the company handled it prompted the resignation of CEO Richard Smith and a number of civil lawsuits. Equifax says it is spending over $1 billion to enhance security and technology to protect consumer data. I'm Daryl Forges reporting.
Keeping your personal information protected can start at home. The FBI suggests you keep your firewall turned on, install or update antivirus software, and turn off your computer when not using it. The coronavirus is causing MCAS Miramar to cancel a unique event it was planning with the San Diego Seals lacrosse team. The Seals were scheduled to play a game February 22nd on a Miramar runway. It was billed as the first pro sports event on an active Marine base. But today, MCAS Miramar announced the game will be moved due to the ongoing coronavirus quarantine. The Seals will play at their usual home, Pechanga Arena. Who says you can't win them all? The San Diego State Aztecs plan to do just that, and tonight the men's basketball team takes on New Mexico at the Viejas Arena at 8 p.m. The fourth-ranked Aztecs beat Air Force this weekend to stay unbeaten. A win tonight would push their record to 25-0. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thank you for joining us, and have a great evening.